Welcome into Courier Sports Beyond the Buzzer. I'm your host, Ethan Petrick. Joining me, as always, Jim Nelson and Donald Prominence. We're moving into the latter half of September here. We're in the full swing of the, probably the thickest part of our fall sports calendar. Got state golf qualifiers coming up. You have fall Friday night lights, Thursday night lights a little bit too as well with the ref shortage in the area. Volleyball tournaments every weekend. College sports, college football. So yeah, we're really in the thick of it, guys. How are we dealing with this big sports calendar here?
Well, it's a lot of driving and a lot of travel, and it's covering two sports that I really enjoy. And of course, nice thing is being able to enjoy the scenery on those drives. I always love the fall colors here.
Jim, you're swamped as ever. How are you handling this big part of the year?
It's just like every year. There's been a lot of them, 30 years in the past, but you just do it. It's 7 days a week. I actually try to make it 6 days a week and have a Sunday, and just do not very little on Sunday. But it's just what you do, and sometimes you just get into the grind and you don't even think about it a whole lot. You're just doing what you do, and you do it because you like doing it. And that's what it's always been for me, is I like what I do, and it's fun to be out there, and it's to talk to people, and and I don't get to do that as much as normal as being the sports editor, but it was fun. I was that Saturday I was at the Cedar Falls Volleyball Invitational just to take photos, and I try to track down some stuff, and I talked to probably a dozen people that just come over and wanted to talk, and they gave us some props. They appreciate the efforts we're doing. They know what our situation is, and we're not a big staff, but we try to do the best we can with what we got and provide coverage of all our sports. And it's not easy. Sometimes one week you're covering a lot more of this and a lot more and less of that, and next week it's the reversal. So it's just it's a real balance. But we're just in the grind now, and it's really a grind until almost the end of track season, and then you get to baseball and softball, which is a busy season on its own. But it's kind of like, okay, we just have baseball and softball.
Well, that's why I qualified it as the fall sports calendar. I think it's part of the fall sports calendar because you get to February, and I don't think that there's easy. Talk about letting your head come above water. I don't think your head comes above water during February. You're constantly in a perpetual state of holding your breath as you're trying to just get through state tournament after regional final after state tournament. So it's definitely a long haul, but we're loving it. We're gonna go ahead and look back at the football games we were at Friday night, Jim, Thursday night as well. I was at the lone Metro victory of the weekend. And you wouldn't have been able to guess it looking at the box score that this game was actually played indoors on Friday night. You would have thought, with the number of turnovers that happened, that it was played outside in the mush or the muck and the mire and the rainy weather. Because I think I saw 4 fumbles and 2 interceptions, 4 turnovers on downs. It was incredible. Linn-Mar and Cedar Falls were just going after each other defensively, just feasting on each other's offense. But still some standouts for the Tigers offensively. You look at a guy like Drake Gelhaus, who we had mentioned in our time on Cole and Company recently, that it was really big to get him back. He goes for 104 yards, 2 touchdowns on 18 carries for the Tigers on Friday night. Also, Drew Gerdes had a great 2-way game. He had 2 interceptions, set up the first touchdown for Cedar Falls. He was a big standout on Friday night. He also runs for a touchdown. It's a 6-yard. He had 2 carries. Went for 8 yards, 6 of them coming on a touchdown run that put Cedar Falls ahead for good. And then William Remmert also getting a touchdown on a reverse running in from the right side, completely untouched. And that one was the one that ultimately proved to be the game winner. So, yeah, it was a real fun game. Happy to see Cedar Falls improve to 2-2. And boy, do they have a big one coming up in Pleasant Valley. That's going to be a real tough game for them and something that Coach Remmert mentioned, getting above 500, 3-2 was big for them going into Pleasant Valley, because that's not going to be an easy game. Jim, what can you tell us about your Columbus-Grundy Center matchup from Thursday night?
Yeah, it was I saw 2 grinding games, where your teams had to find ways to win. But, Grundy Center came into Columbus, and, Columbus, had righted ship a little bit after having a hiccup against West Branch. I was expecting it to be a battle of 4-0 teams, 2 teams in the top 5 maybe in Class 1A. And, how the game turned out. It was like a top 5 battle. Columbus and they went after each other, and it was really good. The defenses, kind of carried the day early, and then we had some plays that made it happen. Grundy, I think Columbus proved to themselves that they can play with anybody in the state. Grundy Center, I've seen them 2 games, and they've both been, I don't think they've been the best games for Grundy Center. They're top ranked. They're defending champs in Class A. Obviously, they're playing up a class, but I saw them play Dyke New Hartford. It was a 7-6 game. They pulled that one out, and this one was a 1-score game really. It was hard fought right to the end. Some fluky plays. Grundy Center scored a touchdown on an inadvised pass by the Carter Lockett from Columbus. He tried to throw the ball out of the end zone rather than taking the safety, and it hit the backside of one of his players and came right back to Grundy Center player for a touchdown. That was a one weird score, but it was a good game. But I think, if you look at Grundy, I talk about, I've seen their 2 games. In between the 2 games I've seen, they've absolutely just dominated with a great offense and really probably a really good defense. But I think of anything for Grundy Center, if you look at it, Grundy Center is positive, is the defense kind of got exposed on a few plays. There's Columbus hit some big plays against them, and I don't think Grundy has been hit with some that kind of big play. So there's some good, valuable tape there for Columbus. The positive for me is they felt they left some stuff out there, and they could have very easily won that game against Grundy Center, considered the best team in Class 1A.
Yeah, we'll get more into the Spartans in a little bit here once we hear from Donald about his East matchup. Donald, what can you tell us from the game that ended at 12:30 Friday or Saturday morning? Saturday morning?
So it was the Friday night, Saturday morning game when it eventually did start. We had started out with some heavy rain, and then we got the lightning warning right before kickoff. I think they had the coin toss taken care of. Right as everybody's getting onto the field after that half-hour delay, lightning hits again, so we all have to retreat back for another hour and a half. So we have a 2-hour delay. Kickoff is at after 10. And they were singing in the room next to the coach's room next to the press box, Marion. They were raring to go. They did not want to go home without a game, and they definitely got one, and they got a commanding victory here. But there were some really good plays right at the end. East, they did get their coordinates, and they got their bearings in that fourth quarter, and Landon Sewell connected with 2 really good passes to Keandre Owens, Jr., who was back for his first game of the season after he'd been on IL. I talked to him after, and the big takeaway for me there is that he was playing this game for his grandma. It was his birthday. She had passed away in 2021, but he was going all out for her. He said that this was his time. This was her special day, and it was his first game back, and he really did make the most of it while he was out there.
IL meaning injury list, I assume?
Yes.
Okay. All right. It's a baseball term thrown at me during football talk.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think in that game too, I can't pronounce his name. Why can't I pronounce his name?
Aiden Muhammad?
Aiden Muhammad. Why can't I say Aiden? Adon?
It's Adon Muhammad.
Oh, it's okay. Well,
Adon. Why can't I pronounce that? I don't know why. I can spell it though.
It's Adon Muhammad.
Adon. Well, whatever. I think he had a touchdown. Good point.
Did you just get Donald's joke right there?
I just did get his
joke.
joke.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I got his joke right away. I knew it. But anyway, I think he had a touchdown catch for the 5th straight game. That's impressive. You got to have a touchdown catch in every game so far this year for East. So props out to him.
And that was against Marion, correct, Donald?
Correct.
Okay. And then Waterloo Christian getting its first win over the weekend on the road at Central Decatur, scoring 6 in the third, 13 in the fourth to beat Central Decatur 19-7. Gave up a first quarter touchdown and then got the win. That's all the more detail we have on that game that we can share with you guys. Donald will be providing some more context later.
That was not the only Metro win that Cedar Falls was.
I guess not. Yes, my graphic is incorrect. I was unaware of the win when I made the graphic.
Yeah, no, you're good.
So, yeah, I also was unaware that West had played a game this weekend. They lost to Waukee Northwest, down Brady Dean missing their quarterback. They lost Waukee Northwest. So there was a couple of things I was missing when I made the graphic, but we didn't need to point out my errors since I'm carrying this podcast on my back.
I think Don and I appreciated it or enjoyed it.
Hey, I'd like to see you guys do all the things that I do.
We got to keep you humble.
Yeah.
You can't really.
It'd be much bare bones if I was doing this.
You can't see it from here, but I got a laptop and a soundboard in front of me over here. Jim has a smoothie and a pad, and Donald has his phone. So I'm operating with significantly more responsibility over here. But yes, let's point out what I'm failing at. Let's talk about Grundy Center because they're not failing at a whole lot. Jim, MFL Marmac was number 2 in last week's AP poll. They fall to Sumner Fredericksburg. Number 3 is Iowa City Regina, and they haven't really been tested yet this year. And so I'm looking at the Spartans and the gauntlet that they've run through, and they've run through fairly successfully. And I'm like, who stands in Grundy Center's way in 1A? Who is stopping the Spartans? The graphic for this one that unfortunately did not make it to my work laptop was, this is Sparta. Jim.
Well, I think probably the biggest thing is who stands in front of them themselves. They didn't play the most complete game or crisp game that of the year against Columbus. It wasn't their best game. I think Coach even said it wasn't their best game, and they found a way to win. I think if you want to look at the teams they got to get through, Iowa City, Regina has a long history. They've dominated. They've been up. They've won 2A titles. They've won 1A wherever class they're in. I think they won 5 in a row here in the last decade. They won 5. They had 5 straight championships in a row. I mean, they were on a roll with Marv Cook as a head coach there. I think he's stepped down from that, but that's here or there. Regina's a good one. I'm really interested to see what happens this week when Denver applies. Sumner Fredericksburg goes to Denver. How good is this Denver team? We're going to get that later, so I'm not going to jump into Denver. There's a 5-0 team. Iowa High School Athletic Association came out with their own rankings. We have the AP rankings we use. They come out with their own rankings where they have 2 retired coaches and a couple of media members, and they put together some rankings. And I think it's in Class 1A alone, it's Grundy Center, and I'm forgetting who number 2 is, but then it's Iowa City, Regina, Denver's in there, Sumner Fredericksburg in there. Dyke New Hartford has slipped into 1A rankings too. And probably the surprise here is I think Columbus Catholic is probably a top 10 team at 3-2. So there's some really good teams there with some talented teams. So that it's not going to be easy. They're playing up a class, but I think they've got all the pieces. They can run the ball. They got tall, athletic receivers, and Tiernan Vokes and Tate Jarovsky. I was mixing up, but they're big guys, 6'4", 6'5", each around 200 pounds. So makes them really, tough to defend what they want to do. They're the team to beat right now. You've played in 4 straight state championship games. And you got a bunch of guys back. And we didn't talk too much about him, but Colin Gordon is, kind of the guy that when tough get going, he comes up with a play for them.
Yeah, and it's Grundy Center at 1, Underwood at 2, Regina Catholic at 3, Denver at 4, Sumner Fredericksburg at 5, Trainer at 6, MFL Marmac at 7, Pella Christian at 8, Wilton at 9, and Dyke New Hartford at 10 in the IHSAA rankings. You kind of look at it and you're like, well, we'll see. When I was writing the preview for Grundy Center, previewing the season for Grundy Center, it was, well, we'll see. They're stepping up a class. There's going to be some tough teams, and then they clear that first hurdle against Dyke New Hartford 7-6, and then they just kind of go on a tear here. And you look at the challengers, and those challengers are stumbling a little bit maybe, and you're just like, well, gee, I knew that they were a good team, but I don't know. I guess I didn't know what a reasonable expectation was with them going up a class, and it appears like, hey, the reasonable expectation is for them to be just as good as they were in Class A. And so, and like you mentioned, Colin Gordon comes up with a big play. He did it on defense against Columbus Catholic, picking up the fumble and going 92 yards for the touchdown. That was a big play,
yeah. So 2 defensive touchdowns in that game for them, So, yeah.
Yeah, so it just seems like a team that can win multiple ways, a team that's going to win no matter what you throw at them. So, yeah, really impressed with Grundy Center through the first 4 games of the season, 5 games of the season here. We'd be doing this topic if it was 4 wins. We could have done this topic after 3.
We could have just kept on going. It would have been another Ethan mistake.
Yeah. So, I was
omission.
Whatever. We'll go ahead and move on. Talking about standouts. and talk about probably the biggest standout in the area through the first 5 weeks into week 6 here, and that's Micah Grier out of Denver. 1,027 yards on 86 attempts, 14 touchdowns through 5 games. He's also the second leading tackler for Denver with 23.5 total tackles, 12 solo tackles, and 1 TFL. So Micah Grier, he was a prep to watch a couple of weeks ago, and he's just continued to be outstanding. Jim, looking back in history, can you remember a player who has stood out as much as he has through these first 5 weeks?
That would be, I'll make fun of myself. That would be testing my memory, which isn't very good. But, the fact is, this guy, I'm not going to say came out of nowhere, because last year they had a lead back in Ethan Scoville, who's now at Northern Iowa. So, he stepped in and, he's had 2 games over 200. Now he just went up for 319 and 5 and a win over AP on the weekend. He's averaging 11.9 yards per carry. That's phenomenal. That is, will that happen? They're going to go against a pretty good defense this week in Sumner Fredericksburg, who doesn't give up a lot of points. Can he keep up that thing? I mean, his worst outing was, I think, season opener again, and they beat New Hampton, a 2A school, and he only went for 111 and 2. So, that was his worst game of the season. So, unbelievable. I can't wait for Ethan to get out and cover that game. Sumner Fredericksburg at Denver, I think 7 p.m. Friday night. We're going to be there. That's the game of the week. It'll be something to see, and that's going to go a long way to, the way it's going right now. We could have a bunch of teams with 1 losses. It would be 8-1 or something. It's going to be a toss up. And then pretty soon we're going to start. We're going to kind of have an idea of who's going to be in the playoffs. It's going to be interesting how that all shakes out. So, big game this Friday in Denver. Sumner Fredericksburg at Denver. So there's some other good games too, but Micah Grier. I got off on a tangent there, like you guys already know. He's having a phenomenal year, and I can't think of anybody really that's done that. Through the years of I spent a couple hours researching. I could probably come up with 4 or 5 names, but there are probably more than that. But impressive start through 5 games.
Yeah, and if you look at it, if they have enough postseason success, I think 2,000 rushing yards is in the picture for him.
Well, he's on pace right now. Even one. He's averaging 200 yards a game. He's got 4 games. I'm guessing they're going to make the playoffs, so he's going to have a 5th game, barring knocking on wood here. Injury, he's going to push 2,000, and that's impressive.
Yeah, and last week they beat Appleton Parkersburg 48-0 in their homecoming game. They got that 7:00 game, like you mentioned. It's also the Junior Cheer Clinic performance. So if your kid has been in the Denver Junior Cheer Clinic, they're going to be performing this Friday. So just another reason to get out to the game of the week. Right there is the Junior Cheer Clinic. But Micah Grier, yes, been a standout. Definitely wanted. I don't think we talked about him outside of being a prep to watch yet, and he's been having an outstanding season since the first game of the season, where he goes up against a 2A school and goes for 2 touchdowns, 112 yards, what you said. So, yeah, outstanding athlete. Definitely wanted to feature him on the show today. Getting to our final topic of the show today, wanted to look back on a streak that just ended. More outstanding play. Cedar Falls was on an 18-game volleyball win streak, ended in their tournament final this week. They lost to, was it Waukee Northwest that they lost to?
Waukee Northwest, yep.
So Waukee Northwest just doing bad things to this Courier sports staff this week. But, 18 straight wins for Cedar Falls. Paige Pop, outside hitter, been killing it. Ashton Wedgbury killing it as well for the Cedar Falls Tigers. Jim, you were at the Fit Court tournament this weekend. What did you see from the Tigers, and what impressed you about what you saw?
Well, it was first off, it's an elite field, and if you look at how the results went down, I mean, you had Janesville, who's got a long history of 1A success. You have Grundy Center, a 2A2 that school that's in the top 5 there that played in there, and but you look at, you had 3 of the best 5A schools, top 10 schools. I don't have the rankings in front of me, my mistake. But anyway, in the semifinals or quarterfinals, Cedar Falls beat number 1 West Des Moines Dowling just to get to the finals, where they played Waukee Northwest, who's also in the top 5. The impressive display of volleyball around there. Columbus Catholic had a couple nice wins. Waterloo West won the consolation bracket. I think their first match of the season, they played Cedar Rapids Prairie and lost in like 3 or 4 sets, and they beat Prairie twice this weekend, beat them in pool play, and then beat them for the consolation championship. So Waterloo West with a great weekend too. it was just good volleyball, a lot of 5A score. It's kind of fun to see those 1A schools take on those 4A schools. And Janesville, I think, may have beat Urbandale, so 1A over 5A. And I think that's the fun about these little tournaments. Everybody gets 4 or 5 matches. So, but yeah, that was probably a really good weekend to see how that 5A tournament's going to turn out. That 5A state of if these teams, if the seeds and the rankings play out and they get down to the state. They all of them seem to have wins over the other team, and who knows, maybe one team was missing somebody. You got to look at it too, that tournament started at 9 a.m. And this is probably something you don't think about a lot when you think about volleyball. These volleyball tournaments is, these kids are student athletes too, and so they're students. And some of them, like you think about Waukee Northwest, what an impressive performance. That was their homecoming the night before. So their homecoming game. So a lot of them were probably at the football game having a good time. And then they probably had to get up at 6 in the morning to get there. That tournament started at 9 a.m. So you don't think about that. A lot of those girls have to turn right around, after being a student. And, and some of them, playing multiple sports, are maybe they're a cheerleader on the side or they're on the band. Or so, they're doing something on Friday night and then turn around and have to play at 9 in the morning on the road, 2 hours on the road for Waukee. So impressive performance by them. I think Cedar Falls looked really well. I think that was a three match against Waukee Northwest. So, and it's not the same. You have to win 3, and these tournaments you have to win 2. So that's the thing too. But it's a good telltale. It's a great for them to see that competition because that's only going to benefit them down the road, and that's how you do it.
Yeah, Dowling Catholic number 1, Waukee Northwest 3, Cedar Falls sitting at number 4 in the most recent ranking from the IGHSAU. And as you mentioned, Waukee Northwest beats them in a sweep, but second set, much more competitive. So Cedar Falls shows ability to respond. They lost the first one 25-11, but then they respond with a nice showing in the second set. Dowling Catholic, they get a real gritty win. They fall behind 0-1, and then they win 28-26 and then 15-11 to get into the championship. So really impressive stuff from the Cedar Falls Tigers. I mentioned Paige Pop's been killing it. She was out for the majority of last season, only appeared in 10 matches, or 17 matches, started 10. She's at 225 kills with a 249 efficiency. So she's doing really well for them. And I'm excited to see this Cedar Falls team again on Tuesday when they're taking on
Dubuque Waller.
Yes, thank you. I was like, I know which team it is. I just looked at
Another team with a long, proud history.
And
they might be ranked in 3A.
They are number 12 in 3A. So, yeah, it doesn't get any easier, but just another opportunity for another impressive showing from the Cedar Falls Tigers and their volleyball team. We'll go ahead and round out the show with the preps to watch. Jim, you're the one that puts this together each week. What can you tell us about Jacob Muller, Logan Rowe, Allie Landers, Amelia Klenk, Nick Merrifield, and McCade Bloker?
I tell you what, it's fun to put this together and try to get a wide variety of athletes in there. And they all had special weeks last week, and and the names that a lot of our readers, subscribers, they're familiar with these names, but some of them they aren't. But special athletes, all of them, they've been tricked. My Prep to Watch column, again, you can you have a coach out there listening to our podcast. You have a prep you want to get into, or a high school athlete you want to get into my column this week. It's at jim.nelson@wcfcourier.com. Send me an email. I'll get a hold of you right away. They've been filtering. Nominations been filtering all day. I already have 8 or 9 already. And hey, if we can get to 10 or 12, more the better. That's how I look at it. So it's a great way to honor these athletes. There's so many we can't, like I said, we can't be everywhere we want to be, but this is another way to get out there and tell everybody, hey, we got a bunch of really, really outstanding student athletes in our area, and this is our one way to honor them.
Don, I can't help but notice you don't have a watch on your left wrist.
No, I don't.
I did not know that you were a sinister individual. But
I've told you this twice now.
You don't have a watch on your right wrist. I'm trying to segue here real cleverly.
I have a perfectly good phone.
Don, what's on your watch this week? What are you looking out for with your assignments coming up this week?
Well, I'm looking forward to a good West and Marshalltown game. I know they definitely want to bounce back after that tough loss against Waukee Northwest. Of course, as we said, Brady Bean is going to be back, and he's been a tremendous quarterback for them. I I've looked at their schedule, and I think that they are in a prime, good position, if not to win their last 4 games, then to at the very least make a solid run at 3 out of 4 of them. I think that's definitely in their cards. I know that Coach Moore has been doing everything in his ability to make good on that promise of putting banners in the West Gym. So let's see what happens.
Not the West Gym, but West's Gym. Yes, it's Rob Siddon's gym. Right.
Robert
Yeah.
Siddon's gym.
Yes. And Donald, you're going to have a little bit more on that Waterloo Christian win, correct?
That is correct. I will be swinging by there tomorrow to talk to them, and you can expect that story for Thursday's paper.
So not a whole lot of information as of recording today on Monday, but Donald's going to get you covered. We're not going to leave you guys hanging. We're going to get some information on that Regions victory. Jim's he's leaning in. He keeps waiting for me to pause. He's got
it's
something.
It's really on topic because you asked him about his cell phone. You asked him about his cell phone, so I just got a alert from the Washington Post. It says the new phone call etiquette: text first and never leave a voicemail. I'm doing it all wrong. Although I do text first usually, but I always leave a voicemail. I just think, why not?
Well,
that's what the Washington Post says. That's the new phone etiquette.
Well, there's
Always
some
text first.
The first breaking news you're going to get on Beyond the Buzzer, because we're not a breaking news show, but new phone etiquette. At the scammer who tried to call me about an Amazon purchase of a MacBook, I don't have the money for a MacBook as it is. Don't leave a voicemail next time. I did get a scam call today. I got a phone call while we were recording as well, so I'm sure that was a scammer as well, leaving me a voicemail.
Boy, they're active
If
today.
I don't see that person left me a voicemail after they called, I don't pick up the phone. I don't call them back.
I'm surprised that you would call them back if they did leave a voicemail, because half the time the scammers do leave a voicemail. But we're getting off.
We're getting off topic.
We're getting off topic. And the
but
cameras.
They probably love this part.
Yeah, the camera's about to shutter on me, and then I'm going to have to do some editing. It's going to take like 3 hours to get this podcast up. So we're going to go ahead and say goodbye. Thank you for watching the show. You can check it out on Spotify as well. Make sure to tune back in next week, and we'll get you a little bit more of Don's watch. I think it's a new segment for the show. We're going to start doing segments. Don doesn't wear a watch, but he's got something that he's watching out for.
New segment, Don's watch.
Don's watch. Thanks for watching the show today, guys, and be sure to tune in next week.